Hello everyone, my name is Dylan and welcome to another video. If you are new here, hi there. I post fun and entertaining English lessons every single Friday. Today I'm going to be sharing 5 everyday expressions that will help you to sound more like a native British speaker. As always, everything we cover in today's lesson will be included in a free PDF. You don't need to enter your email address, just hit the link in the top comment and press download. Right guys, let's do this. So the first expression does sound a bit weird. It sounds like it probably isn't that commonly used, but I promise you this is an everyday expression and it's one that I personally use a lot as well. So the expression is, I'll eat my hat. I'll eat my hat. So what does this mean? Well, this is used when you think that something is very unlikely to happen. So you're kind of saying, if this thing happens, I will be so surprised that I'll eat my hat. It's almost like you're making a bet with someone. Now that you know what it means, you are probably wondering to yourself, well, that sounds cool, but how do I use that in my daily life? Let me tell you. So there are 2 main ways that this expression is used. The first way, and the most common way in my opinion, is to say, I'll eat my hat if unlikely thing happens. So I'll eat my hat if pigs start flying. You know, you don't think it's going to happen. If it does, you'll be so surprised you will actually eat your hat. Well, you might not actually do it, but you know, you might. Who knows? We don't really have very good food here, so it's always an option. Let me give you an example, right? So I was with my friends the other day and we were sat in a bar having a drink. We were waiting on one of our other friends to join us and he was saying that he was going to be with us in 20 minutes. Now, I know this guy, right? He is a dear friend, but I must admit, he is a little bit of a sloth in general. Like, this guy is always late to everything. I'm hardly one to talk, but this guy is even worse than me, right? So he said, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And I said, yeah, right. I'll eat my hat if you're here in 20 minutes. So it just shows that this thing is so unlikely to happen that I'll eat my hat if it does happen. So the second way that you can use this expression is to play the old Uno reverse card, switch it up and actually start by saying the unlikely thing. So if you're here in 20 minutes, I'll eat my hat. As mentioned, I personally prefer the first method. I think it's more common and I think it flows a bit better as well, but you can use whichever one you prefer. By the way, this expression actually originates from Charles Dickens himself, so it's very British indeed. Number 2, and I really like this one because I can fully visualize it in my mind whilst I'm saying it. So the expression is, nothing is set in stone. Nothing is set in stone. Nothing set in stone. So this expression sounds really cool, but what does it actually mean? Right, let's start by looking at the opposite of this expression. If something is set in stone, it means that it has already been decided, right? It's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to change. Let me just show you this picture right here, okay? So this picture shows a message that is literally set in stone. So how are you going to change that? It's going to be hard, right? You know, unless you are an extremely skilled stone carver, in which case, well, you know, fair play, mate. Therefore, when we say that nothing is set in stone, this just means that it can be changed, right? It isn't set in stone. It isn't too late to change it. So let me just show you some examples of how we might use this in an everyday situation. So the first thing you need to know is that this is most commonly used when you are making plans with someone, just to let them know there is an element of flexibility. You know, we can change these plans if we need to. For example, I was speaking to one of my students the other day and I said something like, so I've got you booked in for next Tuesday at 6 p.m. But you know, nothing's set in stone. We can change it if you want. Let me give you another example. So basically, mate, the plan for your party is to meet at 6, go for some dinner at 7, and play some darts at 8. But you know, nothing's set in stone. Okay, cool. But wasn't this supposed to be a surprise party? So in this example, it just means that these plans can be changed, nothing is set in stone. So how do I use this, I hear you ask? Well, you would normally just say whatever the plan is, but nothing set in stone. We're going to play some football at 2 o'clock tomorrow, but nothing set in stone. Expression number 3 is used to say that something is good, but in the most British way possible. So what do I mean by that? Well, British people are intrinsically reserved in most areas of life, so we don't like to be too loud, too outgoing, and most notably, we don't like to be too optimistic either. I'm not just saying we're all a bunch of negative Nancys, however, we are just quite reserved in our praise. We're cautious, we don't like getting too excited about things. And I think that this next expression kind of epitomizes that. So what is this magical, depressing, pessimistic British way of expressing joy, I hear you ask? Well, let's say that something good happens. Instead of us getting all excited and saying, oh wow, this thing is incredible, it's brilliant, it's amazing, it's fantastic, we might instead say, oh, alright, okay. Yeah. Not too shabby. So the third expression is not too shabby. Not too shabby. Oh, it's not too shabby. And if something is not too shabby, it just means that it's pretty good, right? It's not amazing, but it's pretty good, it's not bad. So the word shabby has two meanings. It can either mean that something is bad, more specifically in bad condition, and it can also mean that something is unfair as well. So when we say that something is not too shabby, we are just saying that this thing isn't bad and it isn't unfair either, and therefore it's pretty good, it's not too shabby. So this is just our reserved way of saying that something is good without showing too much emotion, right? Without giving too much praise. Let me show you some examples. All right, mate. How's the new job going? It's great. I get paid £1 million a month and, oh, guess what? I get 20 days of holiday as well. What? Really? 20 days of holiday? Wow, that's not too shabby. So in this example, 20 days of holiday is not unfair, so therefore it's not too shabby. £1 million a month is also not too shabby. Another example might be if you have just moved into a new home and this place is nice and clean. If you were giving someone a tour, if you're showing someone around, they might say, okay, yeah, it's not too shabby. So in this case, it's not in bad condition, it's not too shabby, it's pretty good. The next expression is easier said than done. Easier said than done. So this is one of those idioms that has a very literal meaning. Let me just ask you a question, all right? So what do you think is easier to do? Number 1, say the words, I'm going to the moon. Or number 2, actually going to the moon. So leaving your house, finding a rocket, persuading someone to give you a lift to the moon and successfully get to the moon whilst, not dying. Obviously, it's a lot easier just to say that you are going to the moon than to actually go there. So we use this expression, it's easier said than done, to say that while something may sound very straightforward or simple in theory, in reality, it's going to be a lot more difficult and complicated to actually do that thing. Right, I know that example was a little bit silly. I know that sounds so obvious, but this is genuinely an everyday expression. So let me give you a couple of realistic examples. Listen, mate, if you're struggling for money, why don't you just ask your boss for a raise? Well, yeah, but that's easier said than done. All right, mate. Are you excited for your trip to Africa then? Yeah, I am, of course, but I just hope that I don't get bit by any mosquitoes. Although, that might be easier said than done. So the next time you are talking about something that sounds very simple and straightforward in theory, but in reality, it's going to be a lot more complicated than that, why not say it's easier said than done? Okay, so the final expression from today's video is da-da-da-da-da. Well, it's not actually that. It's I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. So the expression is I don't have a clue. And if you don't have a clue, it just means that you don't have any knowledge about something. So Perhaps you have just forgotten what you knew about it, or maybe you never knew about it in the first place. So a clue is just a piece of information, and this word is normally used when people are investigating a crime. They might say, oh, I've got a clue about this big murder case. However, that isn't really that relevant to this expression. Anyway, if you don't have a clue, it just means you have no information about it whatsoever. This expression is very commonly used, so let me give you some examples. Alright mate, I don't suppose you've seen my favourite mug, have you? It's the one with the birds on it. I don't have a clue where it is. No idea mate, sorry. What are you going to do about your mug then? I don't have a clue mate. There's not much I can do, really. So some other examples might be, I don't have a clue who to vote for. Honestly, I did not have a clue who that was. Do you know who invented the airplane? Mate, I don't have a clue. My car was just broken down and honestly, I don't have a clue how to fix it. So this is just an informal way of saying, I have no idea. Right guys, well we seem to be in the outro, so I wanted to say thank you so much for watching today's video. As mentioned, everything we covered today will be included in a free PDF. The link is in the top comment. You don't need to sign up to anything or enter your email address. Just hit the link and press download. All I ask in return is that if you did enjoy today's video, I don't know, why not consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and maybe commenting down below. I know those all sound like quite small things, but honestly, they make such a big difference. I have done a few of these everyday expression videos before, so I'll put the playlist on the screen. I reckon it'll be about here, right? And I also reckon about here, it'll be telling you to subscribe. So, you know, you may as well do that as well. Right, guys, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next Friday for another video. Cheers.